5 miles long in the future because of staffing and employees and things like that. We all know everybody's hurting for employees and looking for staffing. So if that's the case, we're gonna really need to work a little bit more with UP, because a 5-mile train going through Lamar's is gonna block the entire city for quite a while. We have fire stations on both sides of the tracks and things like that, but it's, where's your staff, where's your people, where do they work, and how fast can you get somewhere? So just for you, Clerk, you know, we talked about it. I wanted to do a little research. So it's 10 minutes if they're parked. It's however long they want, I guess, if it's moving. And now this guy's telling me it might be up to a 5-mile train in the future. Instead of 141 cars, maybe there'd be 500 cars. Okay? So food for thought, but that's something that I'm going to work and probably be talking to the government affairs office through UP and say, hey, you know, I don't know what you can do, but I don't like that scenario for my community. I mean, we already, when the 141s come through here, we got cars backed up. You guys have all seen it from over here by Fairway all the way down past the Legion Club and farther some days backed up, and intersections get plugged, and it's a huge inconvenience for the community. So.
When you bring that up, I just had an individual contact me 2 weeks ago. He got caught in one of those lines, and you're right, it used to be a 100-car train. I mean, that was the max they could go.
That's what we saw a lot of times through town. Those were the big ones.
He counted 214 cars.
Well, we were at 141 the other day or better. You know it's bad when you see 6 engines.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in the middle there's a pusher, another engine, and then 3 in the back. You know it was a long train. So we'll keep an eye on it and see what we can do. Just food for thought. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the council. Mike, do you have anything in regard to the council comments?
Are you gonna skip me today?
To what? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you.
That's okay if you want to.
I'm sorry, I apologize. No, there's a line I forgot to catch you, but anyway, excuse me, Mike, he's next.
I just have 2 quick things today. We did that ARPA funds, the COVID money. We did finally get it deposited into our account today. So it's the first half of it, so just over 750,000 went into our account today. So that goes into its own special fund, and then we'll transfer it out to allowable expenses from that. So that's,
Do you have a list of allowable? Or is it pretty vague?
honestly, I've been kind of waiting until we actually got the funds. But they have a bunch of different FQAs out, and we just all kinds of stuff.
Fire trucks.
So it's to be used towards revenues that you didn't get during a certain period of time, and then also water and sewer and broadband projects.
Pretty open.
It's fairly open.
But we want to make sure we pick the right place to use it.
Correct. Yeah.
Just
You're
for the
gonna come
record,
back-
Jacob,
you're
a fire
gonna come
truck
back-
does have water on it.
You're gonna,
If you
Yeah.
want
you're gonna come
I don't
back,
think that works.
you're gonna come back with a recommendation from administration of allowables,
Correct. Yeah.
as in a half dozen, and then the council's gonna help whittle it down to a couple of
Okay. Yep.
items.
So
Absolutely.
I will bring that at some point. We'll have that.
So I think that'd be the better way to do
Yeah,
it.
we have a couple of years to.
Yeah, I think you have until.
When do we have the second half, then a year from now?
A year from now, you get the second half, and then I think we have until 2024 to
Suspend
use it.
Or send it back.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see.
We got some time there. And then the other thing I was gonna mention is, city clerk position. So when Bev retired, I took over in the interim just to kind of see, she had been here for a lot of years, and see how we wanted to structure it, and just how things worked out. The intention was for that not to be permanent. So coming up here in September, we will probably start advertising for that position, and look to hire somebody by the end of the year, probably November time.
I thought temporary was 4 years.
Well, it can be if you make it.
Jason, is
That's
that
your
a,
choice,
is that a
Clark.
council position or a mayor position or a you position or who?
I believe it is
It's-
council.
It's council.
Yeah,
Oh.
The clerk is.
That is true.
So we'll be involved in it.
Yes, you'll be involved in it.
We look forward to it.
Mhm.
And we plan on being very choosy.
There you go.
But you still get
What
somebody-
committee, I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Not positive what committee, probably the admin,
Yeah, and.
so Rex and Mike.
The admin committee will recommend we hire somebody.
Oh, I know part of those discussions were that you were going to, and you've given it some time, but give it some time to see, all the office people, how everything was shaking out, so you guys are getting comfortable with how it's gonna need to be?
Yeah,
And that's where you're at?
yeah,
That's
that's very
great.
comfortable
Okay,
where it's at.
okay.
And we've kind of sat down and talked about what roles they'll be playing when they come in, and some of those things.
That's great, okay, good.
Okay, anything
That's all
else?
I have.
Jacob,
No,
thanks.
that's all I have.
My apologies again for my this.
That's all right.
Mike?
Several times from last week, when it became official, I've been practicing using the new population number for our town, 10,571. That snapshot that we took, called a census, over a year ago, came up with that number. We know that there's been continued growth, and that's evidenced by some of the topics we have in our deliberations almost every meeting. We need to keep supporting that growth. But although it doesn't necessarily put us in some new category with money trees and windfalls, it's cool to be a town of 10,571.
You're real right, Mike. And I was in the same meeting you was this morning earlier, and I shared with them that 10 years ago, our population was 9,826 people here in the Mars, and we came out with 10,571, or thereabouts. It's within 100 around there, so. But overall, it's about a 6 or 7% increase in population, which I'm glad to see. Our goal was 11,000 people, but we're very happy with the 10,571.
Dick, what was the number you quoted again that 10 years ago was 98 what?
9,826, Dennis.
Thank you.
The big thing that I don't think that people really think about, but I personally had the opportunity to attend one of the first census meetings when they first started. I think it was 2 years ago in Sheldon, Iowa. There was a meeting that the census put on, and if I recall, don't put this in print necessarily, but if I recall, back then our road use tax is based on population, and it's based on population per person. And at that time, that figure was $85 per person per year. And at that meeting, they indicated that it was going to be going to $125, which is $40 per person more over the period of a year. I'm not going to go into the figures. I already figured them out, but I'm not going to go into the figures. But somebody, if you got any questions about it, take your calculator and figure that out sometime. Plus, that is set for 10 years. That's where your dollars are going to come in. And so I just thought I'd share that with you because it is a huge, populations is a huge program. Okay? Mike, do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Clark?
Just a couple of things, very briefly. Go back to your population thing. I think people also need to understand that, and I've heard different figures. Our population might be 10,500, but every day we grow by 2,500. So in essence, we are a population of about 13,000, somewhere plus in there, because of people that come into our community 6 days a week for work. So it's a little bit deceiving to say it's 10,500. we're supporting a much larger population in essence. Talked about green space, and Steve Schuster drove us around out there, and talked to him about green space, but I know when I look at that COVID money, I do look at increasing or enhancing some of our parks. And what I see is a growing lack of green space down in the south end, where a lot of that growth is taking place. I have personally taken, not recently, but in the past few months, maybe year, taken some criticism for what this city does for developers and the help we give them. But I'll tell you what, when you look at the growth, and you wouldn't have growth if you didn't help the developers. You just wouldn't have it because of the cost. But if you look at the $75,000 tax abatement that this city offers, since I've been up here, there's been quite a lot of those taken advantage of, and now they're paying full taxes. They're paying full property taxes because we give them a break for 5 years. So that's kind of interesting. And then the last thing that I've got is kind of a question / warning. On our Code of Ordinance changes, we have 3 categories. We have legislative changes, we have model changes, and we have city changes. Are we at liberty to only change the city changes, Jason? Mike? Or can we?
Model changes, that's up to us whether or not we want to reword some
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
We
And
need to
that's
follow
basic.
legislative changes, but we can be more restrictive under our home rule, but we need to follow them.
Okay, I figured that, but so city changes, model change the same thing?
I think the way I said before, model changes is basically what Iowa codification is recommending, because that's what they see
Okay,
happening more and more.
okay,
People putting in their ordinances. So those basically come from them.
okay. But we can alter it.
We can, I would caution you to do that, I think. I don't know the percentage, but a very, very, very high percentage of cities follow those model changes.
Sure. Okay, and then yeah, because the warning was I am actually making a list off of my old set. And it's not huge, but I have some comments and concerns on the code changes coming up in the next. So just, everybody knows that I do have a few questions on some of them, so. Okay?
Anything else?
Where does someone go if they do have questions like that? What do you do, where do you take your questions?
Well, I think so far I've fielded one with Jason at this point.
So people listening, if they had those, they would do that, or?
Yeah, I would think so.
Or talk to one of us.
I would talk to one of us or talk to the city
Okay.
and say, hey, what's this about, what's that about? And I have had a couple of comments on them, and so it's not gonna be simply that we just passed it today and we're just gonna slam them through, okay? But no, thank you.
Rex?
So around town, we're fixing some of these intakes and manholes that are falling in the ground, and I think we're doing a pretty fantastic job everywhere I'm seeing it. So one that's not on the list but needs to be on the list is the post office alley. The manhole right in the center of the post office alley now has pieces of cement about this size that I picked up and threw over into the post office parking lot the other day because it was sitting on top of the street. Yeah, I know, it was the post office though.
You just admitted that on live television.
I know. I'm trying to be honest, you know, usually when I'm honest, I don't get in trouble. I've had people drive down the alley because I live there quite often, and the manhole actually makes a lot of noise, pops up and down a few inches, which I know manholes do, but it doesn't sound like it's very safe. But I don't think much of it needs to be done, maybe 2 feet around it or something like that. Because there is cuts and stuff in there, but I don't know who, if you're in charge of that, if streets are in charge of that, or if you can get it to the right person.
Check it out.
But, yeah, somebody needs to check it out. And then, if you could just follow up with the bathroom people and say, hey, you can actually finish our bathroom here soon so we can get the parking lot done? Because parking last night is still an issue up there quickly. I mean, parking around that whole place was full because,
They're using it.
they're using it. So it'd be sure nice to get, you know, a dozen, 18 cars, whatever, off of that. If they're not gonna do the bathroom, maybe we put the parking in and get the bathroom done later.
Do we have a start and stop date on that construction project?
The restroom one,
Either.
the one I know off the top of my head for the parking lot, I believe it was an August date. It might have been August 1st.
Different contractor.
Yep.
I don't know if there was a completion,
Okay.
but the hope would be there before the end of the year. Yeah, there had to be a completion on the parking lot, it was.
Yeah. I just
It
thought-
might have been end of
Yeah.
September.
I think we're trying to get it done before we got cold. So.
I don't think that should take so long. What's taken forever is the restroom, and I agree, Rex.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, if the guy has issues, I mean, even talking to the people doing Schuster's Edition, there's certain things that they have trouble even getting to put pipe in the ground, maybe this.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that Bainbridge, they're typically an underground.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that whoever they have doing the restroom is a subcontractor of theirs, so I don't know.
But if they do, and, you know, basically they're gonna sit for another couple of weeks or something like that, let's get it.
We just need to sit down across the table.
Yes, let's get cemented, that's my opinion.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Steve, stay persistent with the railroad people on the crossings. They're not getting better, they're getting worse.
I had a short discussion this morning. Typically, when those go bad, Steve, they're not the railroad's fault. I mean, typically the rail doesn't go down or up, it's the approaches around it. And typically, the railroad isn't responsible for a large portion of that.
Mhm.
Typically falls on us
Okay.
to do them. So. 4th Street was a discussion this morning, Rex, I think you brought that, or Clerk,
Yeah, I
when
did.
you brought it up.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the discussion.
IV corner is becoming bumpy, so,
Yeah, you're only good for a couple of years.
yeah.
A lot of traffic.
There's
Yep.
there's a lot of traffic there, and
Yes.
it's just real good when they get it fixed, but it, like, I agree with you, it doesn't seem very fixed right now.
Yeah.
But it definitely slowed down the traffic,
Mhm.
so, I don't know,
There's speed bumps.
it's kind of, there's kind of some pluses and minuses to some of the bumps of this road.
Is there anything else that we need to talk about today?
No, sir.
I want to thank Dennis and Joanne there because they've certainly been very quiet and they're getting paid well. So anyway, I entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.